Welcome to Awakening the Spiritual Mind. My name is Elizabeth Cario, I am your host, and today we open chapter 12, Aligning Mind, Heart and Body. If you have been following the journey, you have learned how spiritual intelligence helps us live from essence rather than from pressure. But essence only becomes visible when the different parts of us start working together. That's what this chapter is about, inner coherence. When what you think, what you feel, and what you do finally speak the same language. I'd like to start with a passage from the book and from the chapter.
Chapter 12, Aligning Mind, Heart and Body. You cannot fake coherence. You may speak the right words, adopt the posture of wisdom, and perform the rituals of spiritual awareness. But if your body resists, if your heart feels heavy, if your gestures contradict your inner truth, something will not ring true. The dissonance will be felt, even if it is never named. True presence is not a concept, it is a lived experience. It is the alignment of what you know, what you feel, and what you do. It is not about perfection, but about internal congruence, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions are not competing for control, but collaborating in service of what matters most. This chapter invites you into that alignment, not as a performance, but as a path. It is about becoming the kind of person whose actions are not merely well-intentioned, but internally rooted. A person who does not need to force impact, because their presence already speaks with clarity. A person who moves through the world from the inside out. The Four Intelligences, a map of inner coherence. To walk with integrity in the outer world, one must first bring order to the inner world. This is not merely a question of willpower or discipline. It requires a deeper alignment between the different dimensions of human functioning, what we may call the four core intelligences: cognitive, emotional, physical, and spiritual.
What you just heard names something most of us sense before we can explain it. Coherence has a felt signature. You know it when you are with someone whose words, micro gestures, timing, and choices all point in the same direction. There is nothing to perform because nothing is being hidden. And the reverse is just as intuitive. We can deliver the perfect sentence, but if the body is braced, the breath is shallow, the eyes keep scanning the room, our nervous system is telling a different story. Humans are acquisitively attuned to this mismatch. Even if no one calls it out, everyone feels it. Coherence is not a moral badge, it's an internal fit. The mind is not trying to control the heart. The heart is not dragging the body. The body is not vetoing the soul. There is a clear, quiet yes inside, and action flows from it. Here is a relief. Coherence is not perfection. It is permission. Permission to be truthful in real time. To say, I need a pause, or I am not ready to commit, or this matters to me, without dressing it up. When congruence increases, effort decreases. We stop forcing impact because our presence is doing some of the communication for us. Let's return to the text and meet the four intelligences this chapter names.
Q, or intellectual intelligence, governs the domain of thought. It allows for discernment, critical analysis, and logical clarity. While Western education systems have long prioritized this dimension, it is only one part of the whole. EQ, or emotional intelligence, as defined by Daniel Goleman, 1995, involves the capacity to recognize, regulate, and empathize with emotions, both one's own and others. It serves as a bridge between thought and action, making human connection possible without collapse or reactivity. PQ, or physical intelligence, sometimes referred to as somatic intelligence, pertains to the body's wisdom. This includes proprioception, energy regulation, instinctual awareness, and the subtle cues of intuition. Neuroscientific studies, such as those by Antonio Damasio, affirm that bodily sensation is not separate from consciousness. It is foundational to it. The body, in this sense, becomes a tuning fork for truth. SQ, or spiritual intelligence, governs the deeper orientation toward meaning, purpose, and moral clarity. As defined by Dana Zohar and Ian Marshall, 2000, it is the intelligence with which we access our deepest values and with which we make decisions and live in alignment with them. Spiritual intelligence offers verticality. It situates the self within a larger context, providing coherence when life becomes ambiguous or fragmented. Although we can describe them separately, these intelligences are not distinct compartments. They function as an ecosystem. When they are in alignment, a person often radiates presence, grounded, responsive, and clear. Others feel it not because of any performance, but because inner clarity has a felt quality. It builds trust, often silently. When misaligned, however, fragmentation arises. One might think clearly but feel emotionally disconnected, or act with passion but lack clarity of purpose. The result is inner noise, fatigue, and a sense of being out of sync with oneself. The work of integration is therefore not to develop one intelligence in isolation, but to foster the dialogue between them, to bring the mind into conversation with the heart, to listen to the body as an ally, to allow spiritual intelligence to set the compass while the others carry it forward. Inner coherence is not achieved through control, but through connection. It begins with listening across all levels of self and learning to trust the wisdom that emerges when they speak in harmony.
Think of these four intelligences as an inner roundtable. Intelligence cognitive clarifies the landscape, definitions, constraints, trade-offs. Emotional intelligence translates the weather, fear, hope, grief, desire, what's really moving. Somatic intelligence, your body, reports life conditions, grounded or jittery, open or armored. Spiritual intelligence sets orientation. Why does this matter? What serves the whole of me? Misalignment happens when one voice dominates. A classic pattern. The mind makes a pristine plan, but the body is clenched, the heart is resentful, and the soul whispers not this. You can push that plan over the line, but the bill arrives later, as fatigue or doubt or subtle self-betrayal. Alignment is the opposite, a dialogue that ends in a decision. Cognitive intelligence shapes a clear option. Emotional intelligence names the truths and needs at stake. Somatic intelligence confirms safety and capacity in the body. And spiritual intelligence greenlights direction. The decision may still be hard, but it is no longer split. When you act from that place, you don't need excess force to move. You flow the required effort, not more, not less. Back to the book for all alignment shows up and how misalignment quietly accumulates.
Signs of alignment. Alignment is not a mystical state reserved for the enlightened. It is a lived experience, often subtle, sometimes fragile, but always recognizable in its clarity. When you are aligned, something in you settles. Life does not necessarily become easier, but it becomes more coherent. You may notice that your thoughts begin to support, not sabotage, your deeper values. Your inner dialogue quiets, not because you have silenced the mind, but because it no longer needs to argue with itself. The body, too, becomes a reliable witness. It feels grounded, alert, but not braced. Somatic research has long shown that a regulated nervous system supports not only health, but perception and intuition. In a state of alignment, the body does not tighten in defense, nor does it collapse in fatigue. It simply inhabits the present with dignity. Emotions, rather than overwhelming or defining you, are felt as waves you can witness. They rise and fall without taking you hostage. This emotional fluidity is one of the signs of what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called flow, a state where experience is integrated and energy moves freely toward meaningful action. Most importantly, your choices begin to reflect your truth, not the truth you perform for others, but the one you carry within. You act not to control outcomes or gain approval, but because the action itself feels necessary, congruent, whole. Alignment does not mean perfection. It means integration. It is the opposite of fragmentation. It does not require that every part of you be in agreement at all times, but that the different parts of you are in relationship, listening, adjusting, integrating. When it is present, you do not have to push to be seen or heard. Your presence carries its own quiet authority. You are not trying to become someone. You are simply being who you are, without contradiction. What misalignment feels like. Misalignment is not always obvious. It rarely announces itself in loud disruptions. More often, it accumulates in small betrayals of the self. It feels like saying yes when your body is tightening in protest. It is the smile you offer, while something inside you is quietly breaking. It is the decision made to keep the peace, even as resentment coils in your chest.
I love that word, fracture. Not failure, but fracture. Something that can be mended. The repair is not louder intention, it is better listening. Try this frame. Every misalignment is either a capacity gap or a truth gap. A capacity gap means your system is not resourced. The body needs rest, breath, food, movement. The nervous system needs downshifting. No amount of mindset can replace regulation. A truth gap means something essential has not been spoken or acknowledged yet to yourself or to someone else. You might need to negotiate again, to say a clean no, to name a boundary, or to admit a desire. Most friction is when you address the right gap first. If you are depleted, regulate before you recalibrate. If you are clear but scared to tell the truth, support yourself somatically, then speak. Coherence grows each time you take the next honest step. Your system can actually sustain. Let's practice now. If you can, close your eyes. If you are walking or commuting, let this be internal. Choose one life situation, a decision, a conversation, a commitment. What sensation are you feeling in your body? In your jaw, chest, belly, breath, hands? Does my body feel braced, numb, or available? One breath you can take now. Inhale gently through the nose. Exhale longer than the inhale, and do it again. The art. What emotion is actually present? Name one. Grief, irritation, tenderness, fear, relief, another one. What value or need is this emotion protecting? Safety, respect, rest, truth, or love? Further exercise is about the mind. What story am I telling about this? Say it plainly. Is this a fact, a fear, or a forecast? What else could be true? And finally, the soul. If coherence, not convenience, led, what would integrity look like here? What is the smallest honest step I am willing to take in the next 24 hours? Now choose one micro action that matches your current capacity, such as sending an email, ask for time, reschedule, say no, say yes, or pause. Small steps done in truth create more movement than big steps done in confusion. And now in your awakening journal or your book note, write freely. Where am I not in alignment? And what is the smallest honest step that would bring me closer today? If a step feels too big, cut it in half and in half again until your body says yes. Coherence is a relationship, not a trophy. It strengthens every time you tell yourself the truth and act at a pace your body can carry. Ask gently, where I am publicly aligned but privately divided? Which intelligence needs more airtime today? Body, heart, mind, or soul? What would 1 degree more integrity look like before I sleep? Next time, we turn toward applied practice. Our coherent presence reshapes decisions, boundaries, and contribution. Thank you for listening to Awakening the Spiritual Mind.